So I've never done one of these videos before, but I recently picked up an interesting old tape deck that I've got going, and I thought I'd put a quick demo together to show people how it works. It is a Bang Olfusen Beocord 5500, which was an insanely high-end machine from the mid-80s. Bang Olufsen, if you don't know, made and still make very high-end audio gear, tend to be focused a little bit more on form over function. People have likened them to Apple and the like, but the Beocord 5500 is part of a larger system, the components of which I've been collecting over the years. And I just thought before I put that up in the living room, I would give it a quick demo while I'm in the workshop. I've got it hooked up to an old Kenwood receiver instead of the real Bang & Olufsen deal, which means that there's a few bits of functionality that I can't show off, but I figure it's easier to record it here. So first thing you might notice about this is, where does the tape go? It is not as tall as a regular cassette tape, which is kind of surprising, but the answer to that is it goes horizontally. It goes in a drawer that is supposed to come out on a motor, but it doesn't really work and kind of needs help. So the tape just goes in here like so, and away you go. You can actually close it up with the tape in there, and if you got it hooked up to the receiver, then that all works with the remote control and away you go. But in this case, we kind of need the controls out in order to do stuff, so we are stuck like this. Anyway, let's get going. So this is the control panel of the device itself. You've got a startling array of buttons, really. Starting on the left, we've got a front panel input that can be either used for a mic or a line level source, which is a kind of neat feature I hadn't actually seen on any other decks like that. Unfortunately, it's the 5-pin DIN format, which, while it is a standard, we don't see too much of in the United States, so that's not a whole lot of use without an adapter, but there you go. Then we've got the tape transport, which I believe by this point Bang & Olufsen had stopped building their own tape transports, and this, I think it is a Nakamichi transport. It's nothing terribly stellar, but it's a 3-head one with, I believe, dual motors, so it drives the capstones separately. Not quite as ridiculously good as some of their earlier machines, but I mean, hey, it's better than most, I would say. Next up, you've got recording controls. So you set your recording level, adjust the recording level manually, and then separate start buttons for starting recording with manual level control and automatic level control, which I'll go into a little bit later. You can also recall the last maximum signal level that it saw. So here we go, you see it was +2. The record lock button is a neat idea. If you put a tape in and the write protect tabs are still in place, so it's still recordable, if you hit record lock, that will disable all the recording functions until you take the tape out again. So if you've got a tape that you want to leave open for recording, but it's got stuff that you want to protect, you can do it that way. You've got Dolby mode selection, does Dolby B and Dolby C. You can of course turn it off as well. There's some other neat stuff with that I'm going to show you later. Then you've got playback controls, and quite a few playback controls. So you've got your normal play and stop, then separate controls for regular rewind and fast forward, and then return and advance, which are what Bang & Olufsen call their music seek functionality. Don't know why. Next and previous would work just as well, but hey, there you go. You've got a control to select the display from level meter to a track listing, which on a tape, yep, Doesn't work brilliantly, but it's really, really clever. So I'll give that a go a bit later. You've also got counter memory. Oddly enough, it doesn't display a tape counter anywhere, but does have the memory functionality, and it is also, that memory is also aware of which side of the tape you're on. So if you set a memory location on side A, it's played over to side B, you recall that memory, it will actually change the side and wind back. You've also got turn, which is the button to select different sides. Again, Bang & Olufsen, weird, they like to call it something else. You know, your standard auto reverse mode that cycles through side A, plays through side B, side A only, side B plays through side A, etc. Then there is this one, Start Go, which, again, weird name, but that's all tied in with the track listing. Start Go, if you hit that, it will wind the tape back to the beginning and start playback. Like so. The belts on this particular deck are a little bit tired, so that winding takes a little while. But the whole idea with that track listing is that if you hit Start Go, it knows that we're at the beginning of the tape. And with that knowledge, we can count tracks and then call them up at random, which it's kind of a neat idea. So here we go, it's finished winding back and it's going to start playing. You see, if we switch the display over to track display, you see we're on track 1, and it has no clue how many tracks there are on the tape, so it just kind of makes that up as it goes along. But once it's actually played all the way through the end of the tape, it will tell you on there, lighting up the tracks that are available. The music search functionality with return in advance is pretty normal. Like all of them, it's not infallible, and especially if you've got, say, a track that ends loud followed by a track that starts loud, it might, and honestly probably will, not get the track boundary, but what can you do? This is definitely limited by pushing the limits of what they can do with analog technology, and that's pretty admirable regardless. The track skip lets you skip multiple tracks at once. Say here I've hit advance 3 times, and so it's going to skip ahead by 3 tracks. This turns into a kind of progress indicator, counting down as it gets to the next track. Unfortunately, this particular tape that I'm demonstrating with definitely has that issue of tracks blending into one another, so we're going to end up skipping more than those 3 tracks. I have no idea how many, to be quite honest. We shall see. So you see now we've counted down to just 1 more track to go. We're winding an awfully long way, but here we go. Yeah, that's definitely not track 4, but hey, that's pretty cool. The same deal works backwards. Going back 1 goes back to the start of that track. Going back further, of course, say going back 2, it's going to go to the track before. That's all pretty standard. But yeah, it's pretty neat that you can address tracks on a tape almost like you can with a CD player. And you see it still keeps track at least of notionally which track you're on. If I had it hooked up to the receiver with the remote control, I could actually call up a track by number, and if it didn't have that wound back to the beginning setting, it would do that first and then count through until it came to the right track. The counter memory, as I said, is reasonably smart, so let's set it now, and then reverse the tape. Reversing the tape unfortunately means it loses track of the track numbering, but since if it's playing the other side it can't keep tabs on the tracks going past, that's fair enough, I suppose. Let's wind this around, just let's get it really confused. Okay, so yeah, this is another track on the other side of the tape. If we hit Memo Go, it knows to turn the tape over, and it's still going to wind us back to where we were. So, all in all, it's a pretty smart bit of kit. Another neat feature that this has got going on is it can actually, on tapes that it's recorded itself, it can actually automatically select the right Dolby mode. I believe the way it works is with subsonic tones that it records on the tape along with the audio that tell the player which particular Dolby mode is being used. So for example, if we cycle through so that Dolby is turned off and I start playing, takes a little while to pick up on it, but here we go, it's picked up that it's recorded with Dolby B and has switched back to that automatically. I believe there's a way you can disable that if you want, but I mean it's a pretty neat feature, it works well, and I can't notice any impact on the audio quality, so I see no reason to ever turn it off. Another neat thing I should show, if you switch away from the track display back to the level meter and you start fast forwarding, it shows this wonderful Cylon-like animation which changes direction if you rewind. So now let's try recording something. As usual, you know, I've taped the album off the computer, which, I don't know, I think there's some irony in that, but I've taped it and we've got like 5-6 minutes at the end of the side that we don't know what to do with. So what I've done is I've wound on to past the end of the track, so we're just in silence now. If I hit return once, that will get us to the end of the last song. So in this case it's the low level of the play out on this song means that it missed, but you know, it got pretty close. And I've got to say, I'm kind of in awe of how well this works, given the fact that it's all just working off an analog signal recorded to plastic tape. I mean, you got to hand it to them. They did a pretty good job. But anyway, so we're playing out here. Got my there we go. So I've hit stop. Got my tracks queued up on the computer. Now we get to choose whether we want to do manual recording or automatic recording. Manual recording is your traditional common or garden mode where you manually choose the level for your recording, and with all the downsides and benefits that come with that. Automatic recording uses an automatic gain control. This one seems to work pretty well. It doesn't do anything unreasonable, and you can manually set, say, the starting level and the allowable limits, so that you can help it make the right choices. So let's change things up a bit and select Dolby C for this track. So I'll hit the Dolby button, switch it over to Dolby C, and because we're feeling high-tech, let's use auto-record. So first, of course, if record lock has been set, this ain't going to work. I had to actually remove the tape and put it back in before I tried this for that reason. But so we hit auto-record once, and so that puts it into ready to record mode. lovely nice status indicators in English. Now if you push the record level button, that will tell you what the starting level is, which is +4, which is a little bit hot, but we'll see how it deals with it. So then we'll play some of the tracks into it, switch my receiver over to source mode, and that will essentially teach the automatic gain control, yeah, if that's the right level or not. So let's go and find a loud one. And that didn't work because I'd accidentally switched the input selector over to auxiliary in while recording a blank section on tape. So if we switch over to line now, there we go. You see the level meter's off doing its thing. Music's playing. And if we hit record level, okay, it's still +4. That's surprising, but if it thinks it's okay, I guess it's okay. So once it's ready, I'll just stop that, skip back to the track we want to start on, and then hit auto record again. When you're recording, the level meter retains the highest level, so you can sort of do kind of quality control on it, I guess you'd say. Quite nicely is though, even after you stop recording, you can recall that value by pushing this ppm memo button. Doesn't do much while you're recording, of course, but if you want to check how it did after the fact, you've got that option. We're a little ways into the recording now, and while the peak meter still shows a peak at +2, which is the maximum allowable level that I'd set, if we hit the record level button, you see the recording level has also come down to +2, which tells me that at some point it has hit the limit for the automatic gain control and brought the level down. And if it ends up with persistent bits that are too quiet, it will bring that level up again. I should also say this deck has Dolby HX Pro, which actually was invented at Bang Olufsen for one of their previous models, and then licensed to Dolby for other machines. And HX Pro it's really neat. It's always on. It is completely backward compatible. It's all part of the recording process. You don't need different playback modes in order to use it. And essentially what it does is it manipulates the level, I believe level, maybe frequency as well, of the bias signal that is applied to the tape. So that if you have loud areas, especially at high frequencies, that plus the bias signal can just saturate the tape and cause it to clip. So HX Pro allows it to manipulate that bias signal to compensate. So if you've got a loud high frequency bit, it will bring the bias down to keep it all balanced. But here we go. The tracks that I've added have played out. So we can if we hit stop now, that puts it into recording pause mode. And you'll notice that it took a little while to come to a stop after I'd hit the stop button. That's because by default when you hit stop it automatically inserts a 2-second pause, so that if you're making a mixtape it makes sure that the track boundaries are defined. If you wanted to stop right now, you just double tap that. Or I believe if you hold it down it will insert a pause of the duration you choose. So definitely gives you plenty of options in that regard. So I just remembered another cool thing about this that I thought I'd better mention, and that is that the auto reverse works on an optical sensor. rather than the typical one where it runs to the end of the tape until the motor stalls and then swaps around. So that means that as soon as it's run out of magnetic tape and we're onto the clear leader, it can change the direction over very rapidly. So if you make that classic mistake of trying to cram too many songs on a tape and one runs off the end, you still get a little bit of a break, but you know, it's really not as bad as it could be, as I will show here. So here we're right at the end of side 1. I stuffed another song on to demonstrate this. You can see that we're set to auto reverse onto side 2 when it's ready, and so here we go. There, we're running out a leader, and it swaps over. It's pretty neat, I think. So yeah, there we have it. What's pretty much, I guess, state of the art in terms of yeah, fancy computerized tape decks. Certainly, I think in looks and weird functionality, if not the highest quality available. So yeah, I think that's pretty neat, I gotta say. There we go. And yeah, it doesn't want to close, so there we go.